Hey man, it's good to see you. I got this really cool book in the mail.
Yeah.
Fatherhood Faceplants. How to get back up and be the dad your kids need to be. Man, some of the chapters in here, right? All dads faceplant, getting back up, training for war, a victorious legacy. Before we jump into your book, your amazing book, I'd love to just dive into your childhood a little bit. What was it like
Sure.
growing up for you? And what was your childhood experience with your own father like?
Scary.
All right, we're on to something.
It was scary. I grew up in a house that had physical abuse, and it was specifically domestic abuse. So it was more related to my mom. And so my earliest memory is clinging to my sister in my bed while my dad destroys the house, my mom, and me being a kid. And that went on for probably 9 years of my childhood. And so, yeah, it was scary.
And now is your father still around?
Yeah, he's still around. And we've got a great relationship now, and God's done a lot of redemption. And it wasn't like we were, destitute in alcoholism and physical abuse. It was like hyper successful family, money with hidden domestic abuse.
Wow.
And so it was very much a charade, from church to work to money. But that was, and then comes all the pressure to keep the image up.
Keep the secret.
You got it.
Yeah. And I know you said there was a sister involved. It's just the two of you.
Yeah, just she was older than me, and so she kind of got the brunt of really not having anybody, and I had her. And so just to kind of get me through those scary nights. And yeah.
Hmm. And your mom, is she still with us?
She's still with us. She eventually kind of got her wits about her and kind of became a hyper political feminist. Got into politics and pretty much said no more ever. And so she was a very strong leader, comes from a very strong family of leaders. And so she kind of took the reins. And so as a father, now I'm a father, but as sort of like my view of family dynamics were quite skewed, right? So my dad went from angry, scary to sort of passive and gone. And then she kind of took the reins and said, that's it, this is the way it's going to be. And so as a boy growing up, trying to figure out what it is to be a man, I had a lot that I had a lot to deal with.
Yeah, it sounds like it, my man.
Yeah,
Let's talk about something a little lighter for a moment, just because
sure,
I want to bring this back to present day,
sure.
right? So obviously you don't come across to me as anything like that. And
No,
just by looking through your book, I know you're not like that. I know you've dealt with some of your own demons. And by the way, I want to acknowledge and appreciate the fact of how raw and authentic you are in your book about your own stories.
yeah.
But what is the most meaningful and joyful thing that you have found about being a father? What have you loved the most?
Yeah. So, well, first off, I love my kids. My kids are freaking amazing.
Yeah.
They are amazing in every way. There's a great scripture I love to pray over them, which is, I think it's in Psalm 112, and it says, the children of the righteous will be mighty in the land. And, and it's just, they're just amazing. So a highlight reel is, having an amazing relationship with every one of my kids, despite my own face plants in my own life, in our own family. To have us want to actually spend time together, enjoy time together. Nobody's kind of trying to stay at the periphery of family time. And that's just the deepest joy of my heart. And I know that that's a great work of God, and we love each other's company. So that's the answer.
Now I know. So you're saying that you're not a perfect father. That's really odd. I mean,
I
come
know. I wrote a whole book about
wrote a book
it.
about it. You have to be the expert.
There's a lot of wisdoms in coming to the end of yourself. Just tremendous. And the thing that I always encourage men is stop being afraid of, just stop being afraid. A lot of men, especially when they're young, they try to get it right and they might kill it and they might do it for several years and then they get it wrong and then they don't know how to recover and then they get it wrong again and they don't know how to recover. And then all of a sudden they stop showing up for your summits and they stop showing up for coaching and they stop showing up to church and they they just stop because they didn't maintain perfection. My testimony is weakness does not have to kill your joy or your future. Everything is about what you do when you fall. What do you do now? That is where the real battle-tested dads who have really something to offer, most of them walk with a limp and they have a backstory. And so my encouragement, the reason I have a smile on my face is I don't care what you're going through. It can end really, really well if you're willing to do the work.
Dang, man. Battle tested. I don't care what you're going through. It'll end pretty quick if you do the work.
Mm-hmm.
I think about, so we have a mastermind tribe, we have Dad Edge Alliance, which is our mastermind community. We've been doing this now since 2016. And what I can tell you is, some men, right, they come out of the gates and they're like, I'm going to do all this work. And they show up for 2 or 3 weeks. And then they miss like one mastermind session. And that turns into now a habit. Well, I haven't made one. Maybe I shouldn't, I guess now that I've missed too many, it's like all for nothing and I'm done. Right.
Right.
And I have seen the best success stories and the most progress and where men, they do away with that idea of like, I have to burn all the bridges. I have to throw the baby out with the bathwater. If I missed one and I missed 10, it's all over. I'm going right back to my comfort zone where I was, which by the way is not too comfortable.
Right.
It's the men that have like, hey man, like I haven't been on a call team in 3 months. Okay. Hey, how can we support you? Do you need a new call team? Do you need a call team time? Yeah, the old one really wasn't working out for me. Or man, I just lost my discipline. How do I get re-engaged again?
Yeah.
I love those conversations, right? Because that is a man that is exactly, it will end quickly if you are willing to do the work.
Yeah.
But most men, I want you to talk about for a moment though, is the men feel this feeling of shame.
Yeah.
Maybe guilt, right? Maybe unworthiness, like, oh, I haven't done as much as I thought I would do, or how much I'm expected to, or the best one I've heard, how much I should do.
Yeah.
But we don't even know what the commitment looks like, but I'm not doing what I should be doing. So that I just shouldn't even do this at all. What do you say to those men who are face planning, but then they're too ashamed to get back up?
Man, there's so much I could tell them. Well, I'll make it simple and then I'll go deep. So the simple answer is, who's going to show your kids how to get back up when they fall if you don't get back up when you fall? Simple answer. Is you want to be the dad that shows how to get back up. That is a key success criteria in life. Get back up. Now, if you fall and you're overwhelmed with the shame and the guilt of failure or even your own weakness, there is so much that feeds into keeping men down and that specific point, that just saying get back up won't do it always, because it's an anvil that's a little heavier than just your willpower. There's more at work than your willpower, meaning that there could be, just real brokenness in your own soul that willpower just won't fix it. And when men come against that wall, that's when they quit, because they're like, well, I used to be able to willpower this. And they realize I need help. That requires humility and weakness. I don't want to be humble. I'm too proud to be humble. And I certainly am too proud to appear weak. So I know what I'll do. I'll disappear. Then that will make the shame go away, as long as I drink enough or smoke enough or do something to avoid it enough. and I won't, have to do what I call the hard work. The reality of it is, and the joy that I have is this, to share my own story and journey, so I can be an encouragement. Like, I don't care how bad it gets. There is a great God who has a great plan for you and your whole family if you're just willing to surrender to the process.
So I would love for you to share maybe one or two of your favorite stories of how you face planted and got back up again. And I know, tell us what your family looks like. I know before we hit record today, you
Yeah,
told me what
sure.
your family looks like. And I would love to hear some of these face plants. And most importantly, if you don't mind, I'd love to hear one face plant in marriage. And
Yeah.
I'd love to hear one face plant in fatherhood.
Okay. Yeah, that's I can do that.
Cool.
So as far as my life goes, I'm been married 25 years. We'll celebrate 26 this year. I have 4 children. I have a girl that is married that's 24. I have a boy that's in college that is 22. I have a boy at home that is 17, soon to graduate. And then I have a girl that is 15, my baby, and she's at home as well.
How old
So
are you?
how old am I?
Yeah.
I'm 53, man.
Man, whatever vitamins you're taking, guys, hey, go to thedadedge.com/Friday14 for a list of all of Troy's anti-aging remedies. Kidding. But no, seriously, dude, I would have never guessed when you started spouting off the ages of your kids. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
Guys, check
yeah,
this out on YouTube. I'm serious, man. You won't believe this guy's 53. All right, go
yeah.
for it, man.
Oh gosh. So let's just let's go for the gut here. I don't want to waste anybody's time. So I've been married 25 years. I've been separated 4 times. Physically separated from my wife 4 times at her request. Just
Wow.
to be clear. Now, some of those were like, meeting with a marriage counselor, and it's like, let's take a break. Why don't you can you have somewhere to stay? Let's just intensify this situation. And I might be gone for a week or 2. But the last time was sort of the final straw. We'd been married, I think, 14, 15 years. And she asked me to move out. And I fought her until I finally said, this is a no-win situation. And I agreed. And I was out of the house for 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. Now, the first year was extremely bad in the sense of no talking, no communication, only with the third party, just ugly bad. We were at each other. It was a bad situation. Visitation rights, the whole bit. The second year, a year in, God gave us a little crack in the door in our relationship. And then it took another year for her to kind of feel that she could trust me enough. And then I ended up moving back in. Now, what was the face plant? So many, but let's see if I can get it really clear for you guys. I said that I grew up in a physically abusive home. There was not physical abuse, but I was smart enough, if you will, or evil enough, if you will, to have emotional abuse, which means I just kind of put her down constantly about everything. And eventually that cruelty, and I loved her, but I also thought I was better than her. And I hate to say that out in public, but it's what I thought at the time. And it just took a toll. And eventually she's like, I'm done. Like, we're done. I'm done. This is done. But we both love God. We both really tried to serve God. This is not me trying to do this outside of God. I really tried to serve him with my whole heart. But I had so much emotional brokenness from my past that I was a mess. And I really needed serious help. And that really helped me get the help that I needed to get so that I became better. So that was a huge faceplant that I talk a little bit about in the book, and talk about what the miracles happen, that we're here today, and so that's a faceplant there. Yeah. Before I go to the father one, do you have any? I just like hit that one high. So
I do have questions.
Go ahead, please.
Yeah, man. Well, first of all, I want to honor you for your authenticity. It's not easy to talk about, like, yeah, I was doing this stuff, and here was my line of thinking at the time. I thought I was smarter than her, better than her, all these things, right?
Yeah, sure.
But the one thing that, if you look at how we're operating, it doesn't matter if it's us, if it's our wife, if it's people we work with, if it's our kids. however somebody is operating at some point in their life, it makes total sense to them.
Yes.
Yeah. It makes, and in that season or in those years, in that block of time in your life, that made total sense to you. Right. But
Yeah.
you've evolved and you've learned. And, I've known my wife now for 25 years and we've been married. We'll celebrate 18 years. Actually, we celebrate 18 years this month.
Yeah.
And it's a miracle that she's still with me. If I'm being absolutely real, because, I face planted many times, especially in the first part of our relationship. But what I'm most curious about is not necessarily why the separation happened or what it was that, transpired and all the bad blood. What I'm most curious about is you were in this state of mind of like, wow, I mean, dude, look, 2 years is a long time.
I know
That's not a week.
I know.
That's
a big deal.
It's 104 weeks is what it is. That's a lot of thinking time. That's a lot of reflection. But what was it that happened? Bring us to the moment where you said God created this opening for the both of you. Now, in order for the opening to be there, number one, the opening has to be there, right? But both people on both sides have to say, yep, I'm willing to go through this opening.
Yeah.
Which after 2 years, I think you're really defying the odds, because I don't know what the statistics are, but I would imagine the longer a couple is separated, the more likely they are to that's permanent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell us the story of redemption in your relationship.
So I'll start with advice from an older man. So like you said, I was stuck in a certain line of thought, and that thought was, I'm right, you're wrong. Just make it plain. Here's the Bible verse, about you shouldn't be separated from me. And she could be like, well, here's all the Bible verses about how unloving you are, and like, we tit for tat and all this stuff. So my mentality was wrong. I had an older mentor of mine who, when it got really was a messy ball of twine, which most of the marriages can get, where it's just like there's no right answer, it's just a mess. Nobody can get it, pull it apart and make sense of it. He said to me, I've seen a lot of people in ministry get divorced, and most of them, they cite irreconcilable differences. I had this whole camp of guys that were like, clearly she's not interested, move on with your life, accept this is happening, move on. And I was like, I don't want to do that. And so he gave me advice, and his advice, it was in the book, and he told me something very simple. He said, go low and trust big. And I said, it's one of those esoteric things. I'm like, he's like, go low in humility. When you want to fight for your rights and attack her and do all these things with lawyers and all this other stuff, go low in humility. Whatever that path of humility is, go there and trust God. And it sounded like the riskiest advice he could ever give me, because everything looked like everything was going to go bad, even worse than it already had. I would lose my kids, for example, and etc. And I said, God, is this guy right? and he helped me understand, yeah, that's the right way. And he kind of gave me clarity through scripture. So finally I said, all right, to prove this, we had this contention point with her and I about, me seeking some help, from a therapist or somebody. And I was like, I don't need it, I'm good. And so finally I said, to prove that I am sincere, that I don't want this to blow apart, I'm going to go get help. And out of that came steps that I didn't want to take, medication I didn't want to take, all kinds of things I didn't want to go past, I didn't want to go down, that was just like humiliating to me personally. But I said, God, I'm going to trust you. And I went low, I stayed low, I trusted God. And then over months and months and months, she said, it's real. It's not just you. Hey, I went to a church service and everything's fine now. Oh, hey, I had a good idea and everything's fine now. It'll be fine. Everything's going to be fine. All these years of making mistakes, it's all going to be different now. She got to see over a very long period of time my consistency and results, that what I was saying was actually true, and I actually did change. And that's what opened the door. Now, that's a bit of a longer story, but that's the reality of it. So my advice, and I go through this whole in a chapter in the book, go low, trust big. That's different for different people, but it's good advice either way, especially when seeking reconciliation.
Wow. I think that, I mean, that's just not just hard for men. That's just hard for a human being.
Oh, absolutely. And especially when you have men in your ear going, you're a fool. You are
Right.
a fool.
Right. You know, and here's the other thing too, right? Because I would, oh man, I'll say what I'm going to say two different ways, right? Number one, depending on the marriage, right, in the situation, like let's just say for maybe it was like the tangled ball of yarn, like you were talking about, right, where it's such a mess that we're like, wow, like I don't I don't really know if this is fixable at this point, right? Maybe there's so much emotional resentment, maybe there's so much toxicity that unfortunately it's just not going to work out.
Right.
And maybe it would make sense if men in your life were to say, hey man, like maybe think about, an exit plan, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side, I think you also have to pump the brakes and say, are the people I'm getting advisement from, are they the people that I should be getting advisement from? Right.
Yeah.
Because I think it's important to have a circle of men, good hearted men in your life that are, number one, successful in the realm where you want to be successful, right? Where they can show you the way, give you mentorship, give you guidance, give you advice. At the same time, you know, it's important for us to really analyze, like, what do I really want out of this? Right. And you clearly, I mean, it sounds like you really did want the marriage to work out, even though you guys were split apart for so long, but at the same time, you wanted things to work out. You just didn't know that the gap was, I don't know how.
Well, I didn't know how to create consistency in my own life. So I kept, and that's the faceplant part. It's like I kept doing what I didn't want to do. I loved her. I was sincere. I was not joking, but then I would do something and I'd be like, why am I doing this? And there was work I had to do to create a more loving, safe environment for everybody. And so, so a lot of it was, and I wanted to blame her for it, but the reality of it was my own inconsistency and messed upness. That's a word.
That's a new word. We're going to have that in show notes.
Yeah.
thedadedge.com/Friday14. No, I want to honor both of you guys, man, for doing that. But how long did it take to achieve some sort of normalness?
Yeah. So we got back together at the end of 2 years, but it still was probably another year of adjustment. Right. I mean, so I still was, if you will, on trial to some degree. Like, hey, is this going to last? Okay, now he's back in. Are you going to still be loving and kind and consistent and kind to the kids and not lose your temper or whatever? Not that I was perfect or was perfect, but I was more characterized by being a loving, consistent husband and father. And so it took about a year afterwards, and then just honest, open communication, right? A lot of the blaming that was going on wasn't leading to communication. It was just defensiveness and arguing and positioning your point. And so finally I was able to start listening. And then the grace of it was she was able to start to communicate things that my kids were saying, which, will get you right in the heart, because they're just going to say what their experience is. And that really helped me be like, okay, this is not just her against me. It's real. And it's affecting the kids in a negative way. And, like my anger, I was afraid, I'm a happy guy and I have been for years, but I had a very difficult anger problem, which has come from my past. By the grace of God, I'm not characterized by that anymore,
That's good, man. And, as we segue to, let me talk more on that really quickly. I love how you don't identify yourself with that.
Oh, right? Yeah, no.
I have an anger problem. I caution men. I'm like, careful. Words have power. Be very, very careful with the story that you say to yourself internally, and be very careful about the story that you say out loud.
Yeah, amen.
When I have coaching clients, and you're probably the same, I have men that will tell me every reason in the world why they aren't showing up in their life. Right. I can't be patient with I literally had a guy tell me this. I can't be patient with my kids. I'm always angry with my kids because I come from a long line of men who have anger issues. My grandfather had anger issues. My dad had anger issues. And now I have anger issues. I can't help it. It's literally in my genetics. And I told this guy, I was like, that is the biggest crock of crap I've ever heard in my life. I literally called this guy out on it. And I said, listen, I I appreciate you saying that because everybody's got a story. Everybody's got a story, right? Everybody's got a story about how they grew up. I've got a story. For a long time, my childhood story was very similar to yours, but I used that as a crutch of like, well, this is why my marriage isn't working. And this is why I have a hard time communicating. And this is why I have a hard time with intimacy. And it wasn't until I was like, well, wait a second, can I learn new skills? Can't I? This might have been my past, but does it have to be my future? No, it doesn't. Like, let's move on. Let's do something different. And let's stop identifying with this story, because when you really look at it, is this story helping me or is it hurting me?
Yeah.
And it was the latter, right? So I told this guy, I'm like, listen, the more you say that to yourself, the more you say that out loud, the more you believe that, that's the thing that is going to expand. What we focus on expands. What you resist will persist. You're going to keep getting angry unless you're open and willing to use these skills, right? So, or learn, I'm sorry, not use these skills, learn new skills, right? To get out of your own way, because anger is not necessarily a genetic defect. But I want to get to the kids.
Yeah.
Because not only did this separation, I'm sure, stress and tax you, your wife, and then, man, trying to get in that humble place of like, all right, how do we rebuild? What is even the new normal going to look like? Well, now you've got 4 kids, right? That you have to, and each one of them probably I have 4 kids as well, I have 4 boys. Each one of them have different needs. It's like, okay, now how do I find the new normal with them? What did that look like?
Oh gosh. Well, not giving myself excuses, right? So what you just described in the coaching situation was what I call are you willing to be a watershed man? The before and after your lineage, right? Are you willing to be the guy that says, yeah, there's a long list of anger and all these other sins in my past. I'm going to be the guy that by the grace of God stops that. And I'm going to pass this on to my children. So I'll say this verse and I'll answer your question. This verse is Psalm 69, 35 and 36. It said, the people will settle in the promised land and possess it. So talking about Israel, God said, this can be yours. The people they're going to settle in that land and possess it. The children of his servants will inherit it, and those who love his name will dwell there. Now that doesn't sound very impressive just reading it to you until God gave me understanding into this verse. And basically the understanding of the verse is God lays out in front of you, this could be what your family's like. This could be what your children could experience, irrespective of your background. Here is my promises in the Bible. This is what it could be. And just like the Israelites were told, go and fight every demon in this land, overcome them, push them out, and clear the land and take possession of it. Basically, when people do or do not do that, they pass on something to their kids. Basically, the way I termed it in the book is the land the fathers possess becomes their children's inheritance. So essentially, if you're saying to your child, my grandfather was really angry. Here's the gift of anger. I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to do anything with it. Even though it's tormenting me, I'm just going to hand this off as a terrible gift to you so that you can be angry and your kids can be angry, and this will never end until some man stands up and says, enough. From my generation forward, this stuff stops. Now that man will go through hell. Absolute hell. But they will create an amazing legacy behind them. So how did it change? I came to the realization that this has got to stop with me. Every issue that I had before God, I read books, I went to podcasts, I asked mentors, I spent money, I spent time, I spent years to become the man that I am today, so that when I pass on to them is something amazing, because I did all the hard work to possess, to overcome secret sins of pornography and anger and all this other stuff that was in my life, how you deal with women. So that's a long answer, but the short of it is that it changed when I changed, right? It wasn't a tip or trick. It was my self-perception, what I was going to own. These are my kids. I am the dad. I take responsibility for my crap, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get help so that I don't pass this on.
Did you focus on the problem I need to fix, or did you focus on who do I want to become?
I focused on who I want to become with the help of scripture that said this is who I was.
Okay. Can you explain that a little more?
Yeah. So for instance, I think there's a story of Gideon, and basically the angel shows up and says, he calls him mighty warrior. All right. Well, at that moment in time, Gideon, I think he was the guy with the fleece, if I remember correctly, but basically he came from a dad that compromised, that taught him weak faith, that ran from the enemies in fear, so that they had to live in a little cave. And that was his inheritance, running from the enemy, running scared, not taking possession of the land. And then this angel shows up and says to Gideon, mighty warrior. And he's like, well, I don't come from mighty warriors. I'm the least of the least, right? And he's like, no, that's your truest nature. So for me, I had to take an identity that God gave me as being a godly man, right? And other things he kind of communicated to me through the years, and say, this is who I truly am, even more so than my family and where I come from, my family of origin. So I took on that identity and say, okay, God, how do I need to be this man? So it's a different kind of take on what you're saying, but it was basically the positive side. Because most men, I'll tell you right now, men are motivated by an aspiration and a dream of what they could be, more than stop doing that.
Yep.
If your focus is stop doing that, you're going to perpetually fail. If your focus is become who your true identity is, and that identity is redeemed and holy and wonderful and powerful and strong and all these things that God has invested in you as a Christian, you'll succeed. But most men, they just, and sometimes they're in religion, religious circles that really focus on the you're awful, you're terrible, repent, ask forgiveness. This is this perpetual hamster cycle, and you just never get out of it. And you're like, oh, this is miserable.
Yeah, man. I'm so glad you said that, because, words have power.
Oh yeah.
And the brain doesn't hear the word can't or don't, right? It just hears the thing, right? So like and most men, when they come and do life with us or work with us, they're like, I have an anger problem. I need to fix I need to stop getting so angry. And I'm like, how is that strategy working for you? Number one, like, well, I keep getting angry. I was like, well, don't think of an elephant right now. No matter what you do, don't think of an elephant. For the love of God, please don't think of an elephant. No matter what you do, what are you thinking of? And they're always like, well, I can't help but think of it. Exactly. What you resist will persist. Whatever you focus on will expand. So instead of constantly focusing on what you're trying not to do, porn is a perfect example, right?
Yeah.
It's like, hey, that temptation is probably the strongest addiction out there right now.
Yeah.
Is that right? And men go about it like, I can't watch porn. I can't watch porn. I don't want to watch porn. I can't watch porn. And all the brain hears is porn, 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 right? And instead, what if we took that energy, and I mean, I love the scripture, and I'm going to butcher it, but it's in Corinthians. It's basically, when you feel the temptation of the flesh, God will give you a way out.
Yes.
Right.
Amen.
So, I've been doing this Bible study called Operation Timothy for the past 2 years, where I meet with a mentor every other week, and it's an in-depth deep dive and all that good stuff. So what I can tell you is that porn, right? So like, if you redirect, instead of being like, I can't watch porn, versus like, what is something really impactful, really powerful and meaningful that I can do right now? Maybe it's write a note to my kids. How do I want to connect with my kids through a note that they read when I'm not there? Or how can I'll just, instead of looking up something on the internet through this phone, maybe I'll hit the video button and make a 1 minute video of something that I want to acknowledge and appreciate about my wife that I saw that day or that week, right? Or maybe it's actually putting a handwritten letter in the mail for somebody you haven't talked to in a long time, but a way to connect and a way to turn that energy into the person you want to be versus what you're trying to resist. And I think that's one of the key secrets. I am curious though about this. I don't know how you're going to answer this, but is there any scripture around that of like focus on what you want to become versus what you're trying to resist?
The only thing that comes to mind is I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Now that scripture in the context is related to a difficulty, right? It's not meaning he's talking about overcoming something. So I'm a big proponent of God says you can. You say you can't. God says you can. I can do all things. That's God's belief in you. And so when we look at our own resources and say, I can't, what are we saying? Well, my ability to resist pornography, the end of that ability is my own ability. Like there's no supernatural power to draw from. If God says, it's sort of like I say, well, if God says I can, I can. Even though I don't feel like I can, even though I don't believe right now that I can, God says I can. So I better start believing that I can. And that kind of, again, shifts that mindset of I can be faithful. I can overcome. And it's very much a mindset shift. Now, if you're stuck in that perpetual cycle of darkness, based on my own personal experience, my first encouragement would be walk in the light as he is in the light. You will perpetually, once you keep that thing perpetually in the darkness, it does have power because you are disobeying the scripture that says walk in the light. Walk in the light, expose what's going on. Don't think that you're going to be able to be like, well, I don't want to be found out and deal with the consequences of being found out. Okay, then you don't want victory. You want sin more than you want freedom because you don't want the cost of freedom. If freedom costs you being exposed and for what you've really done, and I've walked through this. I'm not talking about this, not some theory. God has helped me walk through this. Walk in the light. And when you walk in the light, you will find that you can all day. You can be faithful. You can be strong. You can overcome. But that's from a position of being in the light, not some darkness where you don't have to, where you play some game like just God forgive me and I don't want anybody to ever know.
I love that strategy, man. And sorry, I have a 135-pound puppy, and
that's a big puppy. What is that, Saint Bernard?
I think it's like elephant. We were talking about elephants. So that's all I can think of right now.
He's a fuzzy elephant,
right? He is so he's what we think he is. Yeah, we think he's a Great Dane lab mix or a Great Dane Newfoundland mix. He's a rescue, but he's only 2. He's a monster. But the funny thing is he's like a 135-pound cat. He is the most independent. Like, yeah, I know you want me to come over there so you can pet me, but I'll do that on my own time and if I feel like it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna chill out over here, which is great because I can't imagine a 135-pound lapdog. But back to what you were saying, bringing things into the light. I have found, I just as any other guy, right? I mean, like I battled with porn back in the, long time ago, and I always fell flat on my face when I focused on not doing it, right? Because it just made it more powerful. It made it more loud, right? Or like if you're trying to watch your nutrition, and you're like, I can't have alcohol, I can't have cake. It's all about like versus like, what is it I want to become? And I love that. As far as your book goes, let's get back to your book.
Yeah, sure.
Fatherhood Faceplants. You've got a lot of really cool things that you're doing out in the world right now.
Yeah.
When you were writing this book and when it released, I mean, what was the hope beyond this? Because
oh yeah.
Oh
man, I got big hopes.
All right, let's hear them, man.
So
I love how you light up like that too. This question's none of these questions are planned, But I'm glad I asked that question because, man, you just came to life. So I'm excited to hear what this is.
My hope is that fatherless sons will become fathers for generations to come. What do I mean by that?
Dang,
I
man.
mean men who have no clue how to be a dad become the most amazing dads for legacies that names get rewritten, that when people utter your last name, all they have is a smile on their face because they are amazing. They shine, God's light so bright. They have so much fun. That's what's possible in God. We can have I don't care where you start from, you can have an absolute amazing ending, and you can be the factor that changes that. And that's my hope. And it's really written for those guys. And I love guys that have amazing dads, and they just, to me, I want for my sons, that their sons are going to just be even way more impressive than my sons, and because, it just perpetuates on generations, good generations that love God, and it just gets stronger and stronger and stronger. Whereas I feel like mine was sort of like a starting gate, and we're getting this ball rolling. So that's my hope.
And you and me both. We're the exact same. I want you to also talk about your podcast, the Kindling Fire podcast.
Absolutely. So I run a podcast called The Kindling Fire, and it's been out there for about 4 years. It's for men. We've had some mutual friends that's actually how we met, some of the guests that I've had on the show. The focus of the show is specifically on story. So what I mean by that is people that embody something. So they love and are called to something, and they sacrifice and they give their whole heart to it. And they may write a book, or they might do a song about it, or they might do something, but when you cut them, they bleed this stuff. And that's what I focus in on the show. And I have interviews with them, and I basically say, how did God get you where you are today? Tell me the good, tell me the bad, tell me the great. So it's less about, hey, I've got, I wrote a book and here are my 3 points. It's more about, tell me the backstory, because there's going to be people that you're going to inspire by just showing the process of how you become where you are today. Author, missionary, pastor, musician, entertainer, actor, whatever. And it's fascinating. I've met some amazing people. It's mostly for men. And my tagline is basically, I think God is preaching to the world, and he's using people's lives as sermons. And so I try to find those people that I'm like, there you go. You own some wonderful thing that the world needs to hear.
It's so cool that the premise of your podcast is through story. I heard a quote years ago, and it was, tell me a fact and I'll listen. Tell me the truth and I'll believe. But if you tell me your story, I'll never forget you. And that's true. Human beings, we relate and we learn through story.
Yeah.
Right. And I can never, I'm not going to sit here and say I can't stand, like, when you go to something like, here's the 3 ways to increase the intimacy in your marriage. Right. I mean, it's like, while those tactics are cool, it's like, here's 1, here's 2, and here's 3. However, when you hear story
here,
right. But when you hear story, like you shared your story, right? And my hope for this particular podcast, one hope of several, is that marriages that are out there that are hurting, no matter how bad it is, there is hope, right? If both people are willing to use your words, right, to open up the crack, right, that or the opening that God opens up for you, and both people say yes, right, and then you're willing to do the humble work. So I love that, man. So the Kindling Fire podcast, again, guys, we're talking to Troy Mangum, Fatherhood Faceplants. You can find this, I'm guessing, on Amazon. Where else can guys pick this up?
Yeah, so they can just go to my website, troymangum.com, and they can pick it up there. They can go to thekindlingfire.com. They can go to Amazon.
All right. Well, guys, don't even worry about it. We'll have it in the show notes for you. To connect with Troy, and guys, seriously, follow Troy. He's doing great work in the world. He wrote this killer book. Pick it up. Also follow his podcast, connect with him on social media. We're going to have a bunch of links in the show notes for you. Number 1 is obviously to buy Troy's book, to connect with him. We'll also have in there the registration landing page link for the summit. Highly encourage you guys to come out and join us here on October 21st and 22nd here in St. Louis, Missouri. Also, Today, halfway through the show, you heard about our free resource that we've had now for, I think it's about 9 months now, which is 21 Days to an Extraordinary Marriage, where I teach you 3 different skill sets and 3 different challenges to then go connect with your wife, and you can rekindle the relationship that might be, it's okay right now, or it's good, back to great again. That's a free resource. We've had thousands and thousands of men who have opted into that. And I swear to God, there's no fee for that. It's totally free. We decided to do that a long time ago. You can find everything we're doing here, everything that we mentioned in today's show, if you just go to thedadedge.com/Friday 14. Again, thedadedge.com/Friday 14. Troy, this has been awesome, man. I have thoroughly enjoyed your story. To date, 750 plus episodes that I've done. And I don't think I've ever had the pleasure of speaking to somebody who has been separated for 2 years and then reconnected and rebuilt their marriage. That is a phenomenal story.
God is good.
Yeah, no kidding. And 4 kids. And by the way, we mentioned the names of your kids. Fascinating names.
Yeah. So my oldest is Rain. My second is Avi. My third is Olin. And my last one is Abri.
I love that, man. I love you so much. You are the mighty. And then Psalms 112:2.
You're mighty in the land. I love that verse. My kids are awesome, man. For real.
That's in the dedication. And oh my gosh, man, I just noticed this. You know, you have probably every reason in the world, right, to leverage, you know, I don't like my dad, like
Sure.
to say that story over and over. And the last sentence here in the dedication of your book is, to my dad for showing me how to never quit.
He never quit. Even though he screwed up, he never quit. He got back up. He tried to do it right. He learned. There's this, I love my dad. I honor him. I'm so grateful to be a son, even through all the terrible things we went through.
You got to choke me up, man. Like, seriously, that is legit. You put that in your book. You know, there's no outlashing. There's no ramifications. No. Like, you still continue to honor your father. That's so awesome, man. Good for you.
Thank you, man.
You bet. Troy, what a pleasure, man. Legendary interview. I really appreciate you coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been a real honor.
You bet. Gentlemen, go to thedadedge.com/Friday 14. Go out and live legendary, gentlemen. Take care.